Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by the one and only Ford Fischer of News2Share, who was just reporting on the ground at the Virginia rally for gun rights. I wanted to go straight to you, Ford, and ask, first of all, before we get into, the meat and potatoes of what happened today, can you break down what led to this massive rally?
Yeah, so the thing that I think a lot of the media is actually missing about this is that this event happens annually. This is not something that's particularly new. They do a lobby day every year where the Second Amendment people come out and go around to their different legislative offices, and they tell their congresspeople, these are bills we think that would help gun rights, and these are bills that we think are hurting gun rights, and we want to make sure you don't support those ones. And that's actually a really normal thing. Usually it only shows up about 100 to 200 people, and frankly it's usually too boring for the media to cover it. I've been to a couple events like that. I've been to one in Pennsylvania, for example, and it didn't make for great YouTube videos, to be honest, because most of it was just dudes talking to some guy sitting behind a desk, and and the person's like, "Oh yes, I'll pass that along to the senator." The thing that was different this time is that now in Virginia, the Democrats took the legislature and they took the governorship, and so there's this feeling among the pro-gun community that this is the actual opportunity that the anti-gun people have to make a considerable difference. And so there have been a number of bills proposed already in this new legislative session, and many of which relate to gun control, and many of which, of course, the gun rights community objects to. And so that was kind of what powered so many people to take this viral. The other thing that really was sort of a backdrop to it is that that fear of new gun control caused there to be this firearms sanctuary city and sanctuary county movement, where now 94% of jurisdictions in Virginia geographically are in some kind of gun sanctuary, where at least an informal resolution says we're not going to enforce state law against the people in our area. So Virginia has become this flashpoint for gun rights, and that's really how this rally was able to get so much attention and draw so many people out.
Right, and obviously Virginia has been a big hotbed for gun rights for a very long time, since the beginning of the country, and that's why it was shocking to a lot of people to see the push towards, handgun bans and stuff by Governor Northam in Virginia in recent days, as well as the Republican-supported, red flag laws that are running out of the federal government and being approved by many states throughout the United States as well. I want to ask you about your expectation this year, considering there is a lot of hype, versus the reality that you saw today on the ground.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of media attention on the extremist elements who were planning on going. So it is true that there were 3 members of a neo-Nazi group that were arrested on their way there. Ironically, what they were arrested for was actually harboring an illegal immigrant, because one of their Nazi friends was from Canada and wasn't supposed to be there, and he had a gun he wasn't supposed to have. So they were charged with harboring an illegal immigrant and like carrying an unregistered machine gun or something like that. I guess it was like a mod, like a full auto or something. But in any event, there was a lot of media attention on the types of extremists and so forth that would show up. But it turned out that it really wasn't people from the alt-right, people who were conflating this situation with Charlottesville. I think it was a little misguided. Now, there are certainly people who don't feel comfortable with private citizens marching around dressed like soldiers, right? And there was a huge presence from various militia groups around the country. But that is a very distinct movement as opposed to the alt-right, which I think was sort of being tied to this event in the media to some extent. So the other thing was that people were worried about the prospect of violence, and frankly, there was no violence and no arrests today.
Yeah, it went over extremely peacefully, extremely well. And you mentioned, a lot of people aren't comfortable with people walking around the streets, dressed as soldiers. I think a lot of people would say on their side as well, they're not really comfortable with the only people walking around in the streets with guns being soldiers. So I think there's like this kind of back and forth there that we're really seeing come to fruition, especially in recent days, as we see a lot of the push by the media, as well as by obviously the government and a lot of people on the left and some even on the right, for gun control in the United States. And I do want to note, you mentioned Charlottesville, and obviously you were reporting on the ground at Charlottesville, and obviously it was a very traumatic experience for a lot of people who attended. But one thing I noticed was almost every media, it basically just framed this rally as a white supremacist rally. I found it really irresponsible. There's a lot of mainstream medias out there that were saying, you know, most people on the ground are white, and this is Charlottesville 2.0, and et cetera. And it's like, well, you know, anywhere you go in the United States, most of the people you're going to bump into statistically are going to be white. Doesn't mean it's going to be a white supremacist rally. But I wanted to hear your thoughts on, you know, what you really saw on the ground as far as, you know, diversity or, you know, people with different ideas. I mean, I don't think it's as cut and dry as, you know, just militants out there with "Don't Tread on Me" flags. I think a lot of people, obviously, if you look at the amount of people buying up guns right now in Virginia, are not of what the media would frame as the extremist type.
Yeah, I mean, so the event certainly wasn't like ethno-homogenous. I mean, there were different types of people of different groups, different political orientations, and so forth. But it is actually, I think that what might be more informative, maybe, to answer this question is the view that the Antifa had about this situation. So when people were comparing this to Charlottesville, a lot of the framing was about, is Antifa going to come and are they going to kind of do battle and are they going to shoot each other and stuff like that. The Antifa generally in this area put out statements encouraging their people not to come. Many of them objected to the types of groups that come here. They don't like that the militias, for example, they see as basically supporting Trump. They've even, in some cases, branded the militias as fascist, and in one case even released like a list that was called like a fascist watch list or something. But at the same time, even the Antifa groups basically acknowledged, I think, two important things. One, the Antifa groups acknowledge that this is a event that will draw normal gun-owning people, right? They are not necessarily conservative. They are not necessarily right-wing. They are certainly not necessarily fascist of some kind. And so there would be, if there was a fight, there'd be a lot of people caught in the crossfire that wouldn't really be people that Antifa would consider targets. But on top of that, Antifa as a movement is generally pro-gun, right? There's kind of a joke in the activist world where, you know, once you go far enough left, you get your guns back, right? So actual leftists, right, socialists, communists, anarchists, while their motivations to be pro-gun may be quite different from that of a conservative or a libertarian or kind of a more right anarchist, they themselves don't actually oppose the single issue that they were out there for. So I was seeing statements by anti-fascist groups saying things like, we don't actually support the particular groups that are going out there protesting, but we also oppose the laws that they are out there protesting against. And so I just don't think that the recipe for disaster was there, because there really just weren't rival factions out there. There was nobody ideologically out there that wanted to kill each other in the same way that there would be at somewhere like Charlottesville or Portland.
Right. Eventually you go so full circle, you find yourself on the other side, fascist or communist eventually. But I want to ask, because there's so much fear in the media about this, so much fear that, you know, the expectations get so high, and we've seen this so many times with so many different events. Unfortunately, Charlottesville is one that did go in the wrong direction. But I wanted to ask, was there anything remarkable at all? You've covered a lot of events. Was there anything truly remarkable at all about this event today?
Well, you know, there was something that I was really critical of about how they handled it. And I would say that it turned out peacefully in spite of this rather than because of it. Because in anticipation of this many gun owners coming and carrying at this pro-gun event at the Capitol, the governor basically sealed off all of the area around the Capitol and made it a gun-free zone. So you had to go through these metal detectors. I actually had to surrender my tripod to the police. I was shocked I got it back. I actually did get my tripod back after giving it to the cops when I left an hour and a half later, which was wonderful that I got it back. But the person in front of me had a hip flask. They made him pour out the stuff into the grass. The person behind me was a 76-year-old man who had a folding chair, and they made him throw that out. So they they locked down everything. And my criticism is that it's not that in itself is that not having those things is going to make the situation violent. It's that it's not actually going to cause people to come without those things. What it caused is that all of the people with guns were just in many different places instead of in one place, right? If you have a permitted specific zone, and that's it, then you're going to have all the people in one place, and you can pretty easily police them. I think by having people scattered about, they were putting people at risk.
So Ford, finally, I wanted to ask you one final question here regarding this movement. There's kind of like a movement on both the left and right of civil disobedience. Are you starting to see a growing movement, or is this just like, am I just seeing things here? I feel like there's a lot of people on both the left and right that are getting riled up now more than ever before.
So today in particular, there wasn't really any civil disobedience because on the one hand, you had the area where people could go in without firearms, and some did. And then you had people who could lawfully carry firearms outside of it, and they did too. But, in this case, I suppose civil disobedience would have been to like march over the fence with the guns or something like that, which of course did not happen. But there actually, maybe there could be some illumination here, which is that I did interview a sheriff. There was a cop in uniform, a sheriff, who was saying, I'm not going to enforce these gun control laws if they pass in my county. And he was with a state senator next to him, who he was like, and I deputized this state senator so he can carry whatever he wants. And the state senator opened his jacket, and he literally had a police badge on.
Wow.
So, I suppose you could say that that's kind of conservative civil disobedience would be to kind of carry. I did hear chants of "We will not comply," which goes with that same theme. So yes, in a way, on the right, you did see that. On the left, I have been seeing more civil disobedience actions. In some cases, usually what I film ending up happening is that people protest where they're not allowed to, like inside the Capitol, in DC. And in some cases, blocking entrances to government agencies such as ICE that they disagree with. I do think that there's a growing trend to activism. I think generally the left does more street activism of this type, and in a way the right is kind of learning from them. They might be a few steps behind in that way, but yeah, I think that overall the tactic of civil disobedience is probably escalating, and in the case of today, there was some rhetoric about civil disobedience, but it didn't really happen on the ground.
Right. I mean, civil disobedience is what kind of founded the country in the first place, and there definitely seems to be something that I feel in the air. I think a lot of people feel it. We're not quite sure what it is yet, but I'm sure we will see something come to fruition in the coming years. Ford, I really appreciate you joining us today. Can you let all of our viewers know where they can find more of your work?
Sure. So my name is Ford Fischer, Fischer, and my outlet is called News2Share, which is on the hat. That's news, the number 2, share, all as one word. And so I am on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Minds.
Excellent. Just think Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, and you got it. Anyway, I appreciate you joining us today, and we hope to talk with you again soon.
All right. Thank you for having me, Josh.
Like what you see here at Wham, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan, if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. at Josh Sigurdson, as well as at Wham, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are two major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Thank you.